person says, not what they look like. I mean, and that's just, that is not the way that the officers at the consular section make their decisions.
Okay.
It's very possible they said, you have not shown today enough ties that you're going to come back, but that would be based on the answers they gave, not on what someone looked like.
So Prince talks about, he has two questions actually. Is there a system to review or check, people who have been refused?
Sure, that's a good question, and we sometimes get, essentially it's asking, if I've been refused, can I appeal? And the answer is no. There is no way to get an appeal, but it also is true that if you've been refused, it is not a permanent decision. It is just that one decision. If you think that the decision was wrong, the remedy is to apply again.
He also talked about someone who applies for a non-immigrant visa, pays for the processing. Along the line, they say, well, we cannot find your documentation, and therefore you have to repay all over again.
I'm not aware of a circumstance where that would happen. Obviously, once you've paid for your application, you're entitled to have your interview at some point. I would say if someone is having that particular problem, they should, go to the embassy's website. There are methods there to contact the embassy. There's also information about it. There's a call center, there's a number for a call center that you can go to call to try to straighten out any technical problems like that.
So let's now speak to Matthew, who's on the line. Matthew, good morning, and thanks for your time. Matthew, can you hear me? Let's speak to Kofi Mensah. Kofi, good morning.
Yeah, morning, David.
Sir.
Yes. This question, I want him to answer it for me. I have a friend. The marriage is a traditional marriage. So I think he hasn't even done proper registration. What do they demand of a couple who want to travel in a traditional way? They are married. What proof will they need to show that they are actually husband and wife? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Emmanuel is next. Hi, Emma. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, Emma, let's hear you, sir.
Okay, so my question is regards to the appointment, the schedule of the period. As he rightly said, it had been booked in Ghana to next year. But surprisingly, there are middlemen, if you're able to pay them, they charge as high as $400 and $500. Then they are able to. A colleague went through the same thing. He got February next year, and he was going for conference. Somebody introduced him to a middleman. He charged him $400, and was able to bring the date. He got a new date closer, and he was successful. He had secured the visa. So I want to ask, is it like they have other means of giving dates, schedule, that are not open to the public? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Kofi Mays. Emmanuel there. Let's speak to Christoph. Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, David.
Let's hear you, Chris. Please turn down the volume on your radio set for me. Thank you.
David, you see how your line has been busy for the past 15 minutes? It tells you people are taking their plans to leave their country. David, I want to find out from a good friend in the studio whether the embassy, the American embassy, has contracted people to work on their behalf. As somebody was saying, that we have travel agencies that will take people's money and say they want to take them to the U.S., only to find out that they are not genuine and that your money is locked up and all that. There are guru boys around the embassies who aid people, take money from them, tell them that they will help them to let them travel. I want to know. And then finally, David, for him to say that if somebody in the U.S. has brought a petition to somebody here so that he will take the fellow to the U.S. and along the line, the processing was ongoing and the fellow died. For him to say that case closed, I don't think it's the best. I'm sure that fellow in the U.S. also has a nest of kin or somebody around him and all that. And so if the fellow dies, that shouldn't be the end of the process. I mean, somebody on behalf of that dead fellow can still work up and bring this fellow in. Maybe the fellow has spent a lot of money.
Well, thank you very much. He will give you an answer. Don't worry. Samuel is our final caller. Sammy, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Dave.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing? Yeah, please, I want to know whether the U.S. embassy, or if you like, by extension, U.S. government, is using the visa application, the fees the Ghanaians pay, as a means to raise money Because the way they will refuse you visa, you have no way to apply for a review or something. They say reapply, and when you are reapplying, they are taking money from you. Anytime you reapply, they are taking money from you. So I want to know whether it is a means. Maybe they are giving targets that you need to meet this amount, get this money from Ghanaians, and bring it for the U.S. government. That's my question.
All right, Samuel, thanks very much. All right, so let's start from top to bottom. What Samuel is saying is that the visa application fees that people pay, is it a revenue generation of a sort for the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. government?
It is not. The visa fee, the visa application fee is designed to cover the cost of processing the visa application. In fact, it is by law, we have to take in as much money as we spend to process the visas. It is not a money-making scheme.
Then Christoph comes in. He had two questions. He doesn't understand why if somebody brings down a petition to try and relocate somebody, a relation wants to, like that of the first caller, James, says the father started the process, paid his tax returns and everything. The father dies along the line. Mm-hmm. Why should that process stall? Why should it stop? Well,
that is what American immigration law says. When the person is actually issued, they have to be still eligible for the visa at the time we actually issue it. And if the person in the United States has passed away, then unfortunately they're no longer eligible for the visa.
And nobody can take up the process and continue it to its logical conclusion?
Well, just in the same, it's just like, sometimes you may no longer be qualified. I mean, I agree it's an unfortunate situation, obviously, but it's just that is what American law says.
All right, so somebody talked about Goro boys, middlemen, and Christoph also had a question on that very one. Now, let me put the two together because Christoph has issues and concerns as to the fact that the Goro boys are, there at the American Embassy and are able to some extent pull strings and help people. So you realize that somebody called and was like, somebody had an appointment somewhere,
right.
The date. Mm-hmm. He was able to change the date, and he's a middleman. So how was he able to change the date? And the person has now gotten the visa.
Well, a lot of the time, you may hear the stories about the people who say, I was able to get an appointment by going through a middleman. You don't hear about the 10 other people who got ripped off. And it could be that the middlemen, what they often do is they'll take the money and maybe, 9 people they're unsuccessful with, and either they keep the money or they give it back. But the 10th person, they get a visa appointment like everyone else, and they say, here, it shows I have a ties in the embassy.
How are they able to do it?
Well, because there are, as time goes on, as we do release visa interviews from time to time, we have additional capacity, so we release them, and then they become available, and some people some people do get them, and perhaps these middlemen, sometimes they get lucky and they're able to get an appointment like any other person would be able to. But then, unlike the regular visa applicant, they charge money for it. But again, if they tell you that they have any special in with the embassy, that they have a special procedure, they're lying.
Are you saying that there's no way where somebody who's not a consulate officer can be able to... No, let me rephrase my question. There's no way where a middleman can influence a consulate officer and say, listen, get an appointment date, change an appointment date for somebody, where somebody who works in the American Embassy can help somebody get a visa through a third person or a middleman. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that if there is no way to do that where they take money for it or any sort of inside circumstances. I have described here the ways in which you can get an appointment faster than the normal process. For example, the expedited appointment category. That is a regular process that follows the rules. There is no special program for people who get to take money and such. Again, it's in the people. The thing is that people take the money and they tell you, they brag about the ones that maybe they get lucky and do. But for every one that might happen, there are 10 people who they take the money and they're completely unsuccessful. They're again, do not pay thousands of dollars to middlemen. You are being ripped off.
Okay. Then Kofi came in. His question had to do with the fact that how do you prove that you're married to somebody? Now, we have traditional, we have the Orthodox, we have the Mohammedan marriages. Now, the Orthodox marriage, the wedding, as we call it, will give you a certificate. The ordinance, will give you, a certificate. But the traditional marriage, how do you prove that when you want to travel with your partner?
First of all, our officers are familiar with the laws of Ghana when it comes to marriage. So we are familiar with the different types of marriage that may be present under Ghanaian law. Now, for a non-immigrant visa, you don't have to prove. It's not have to quote unquote prove that you're married. We actually, your marriage may be relevant, but it's not. It is only one factor that we would consider when we're seeing your overall qualification for a visa. For an immigrant visa interview, yes, sometimes you would have to prove that you are married to someone. We actually send out specific written instructions for every immigrant visa application that explain the documents that you need. And we also have information on our website that explain exactly what kind of documentation you need for an immigrant visa. I'll just say that I know that, I said the documents aren't very important for non-immigrant visa applications. Just want to be clear, that is not true for immigrant visa. In immigrant visa applications, there are a lot of documents, and they are important.
My final question. Now, the U.S. Embassy has been in Ghana for quite some time now. Unfortunately, this is your first time to our beautiful city here in Kumasi. That final question is, do you have plans of opening an office of a sort here in Kumasi, so we don't have to come all the way to Accra to go through an interview session?
And there's an international airport here.
Well, do you have plans to open an office?
Let's put it this way. If I could guarantee that I would get to be the head of this office and stay here in Kumasi, I would lobby for that. But, of course, it is not up to me to decide where we open up offices and stuff and such like that. And obviously, we have a lot of countries that we have to cover around the world. But I will say that I've enjoyed my visit to Kumasi, and I definitely plan to come back again.
When do you plan